All right, Cooper, you want to get on to some music news?
Music,
I'm sorry.
music news.
I
Let's do the music news. I only have two things to talk about, and they're basically the
oh,
same topic.
This is Producing Music Podcast with Mark Dollar and Cooper Anderson.
okay, cool.
IPOs. We've talked about this. I forget if it was last week or the week before, but I've definitely mentioned the Warner Music IPO. It was on and then it was off, and now it's back on. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because the Saudis right now are just trying to buy everything up, and they prefer to buy it in the private equity markets because there's much less scrutiny there. So if you have an
Yeah,
IPO, which means they're releasing like stock that people can buy. I mean, the Saudis can still buy that stock because it's the public market, but in general, there's a lot more scrutiny over those transactions because if it's on the U.S. market, anyone who owns more than 5% of the company has to report that to the SEC, and I just like that better. I feel a lot more comfortable about the music industry if we have a little bit of government regulation on investment. So
yeah.
the other big IPO is Big Hit Entertainment, which is BTS's label. I mean, I've been
Oh,
following these
yeah.
guys since I met Bang in 2011. He's like the main dude behind it, and I just think it's wonderful what those guys have done with their label. It's really amazing. The Korean scene's a little different. I've been working with Koreans since 2007 when I worked with Rain, who was the first Korean artist to come to America and sell out Madison Square Garden. He sold it out in like half an hour. It was, I feel like Rain really paved the way for BTS
Wow.
and BTS definitely took it to the next level with their, mainstream hits. Rain never really was that mainstream in the U.S., but like the Koreans in the U.S. loved him. So it'll be interesting to see. So they're doing an IPO on the South Korean markets, which basically means, I mean, the IPO, I feel like as far as the company goes, it's like it's a way for the founders to really get paid, because when you're starting a company and whatnot, you're by the skin of your teeth. You're pulling up your bootstraps and getting it done. Like Daniel Ek, for instance, from Spotify, takes $1 a year salary. I mean, he's a
Hmm.
billionaire because of his stock holdings, but is he cashing that out? We don't know. Is definitely not completely cashing out. But
Of
I feel
course.
like when you IPO, there's a lot of cash coming in to those companies, and I think it's good for yeah. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
always good, but like it's if
I'm
you started a
assuming.
company, it's a good way to get paid, basically.
Yeah, I'm assuming when you're, talking about the scrutinies involved, that can mean anything from like petty cash flow in the up to the millions. Maybe like certain fundings of certain departments that maybe um, would gain the scrutiny. Who knows? Who knows what that can look like? You know?
Well, especially with media companies. I mean, it's music is one thing, but if you don't have scrutiny, these companies can kind of do whatever you want. And then if, like, say, the Saudis own 75% of your company, they're going to be able, not necessarily that they would do it, but they're going to be in a position where they could tell you what to do if they wanted. And I don't know if you've ever
Of
seen
course.
the show Breaking Bad, but on that show, they had this mariachi band, and basically the drug dealers would communicate with through the mariachi band. The mariachi band would put out a song, and the lyrics would kind of have a message, like telling them what was going on and telling them what to do and that sort of thing. So I mean, that was obviously fiction, but if you don't have that scrutiny, that's a potential media outlet where something like that could happen with a foreign entity.
Yeah, that's pretty scary to think about. I'm not a Breaking Bad fan, but yeah, that's a wild idea to think about for sure.
You know, and that's why there's so much concern, you know, with the Trump administration and like the Huawei and the 5G rollout, you know, because they just don't want to give that much control up to a foreign entity, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. You know, it would be good to make sure that the companies investing in these particular IPOs to be invested in the full market as opposed to their own interests.
Yeah, exactly. So you can, it just basically doesn't give them as much control. They can still make an investment and they can still profit from that investment. But if they purchase more than 5% of the company, they have to file that with the SEC. And then basically our government will be notified that this is happening and then take whatever action is necessary, if any.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense for sure. And other music news, we want to talk about Apple Music dominating streams for U.S. hip hop releases.
I'm gonna put your screen up real quick. Here we go.
Cool.
Can you move that to the other side? Sorry.
Okay, cool.
Just the way my screen's set up. Yeah.
How's that?
That's great. Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. So yeah, Apple Music is dominating streams for U.S. hip hop releases, even more than you think, as according to Music Business Worldwide. So basically, to sum this article up, Apple Music has been buying particular shares and percentages into the releases of top tier hip hop artists. So basically, they're buying exclusive rights to these albums and singles and releases, thus being able to add more, I guess, heat and popularity to the Apple Music format. And while, you know, they have submitted in Apple Music and Apple have submitted their own ideas of these play counts and such, you know, we've been able to look at some of these kind of intricate parts of data as aligned to other market share results and such, like Amazon Music and YouTube and Spotify. So here's you know, some examples of how Apple Music is looking at this. So Dark Lane demo tapes by Drake, which was released on May 1st, number 2 on total on-demand audio streams in the week, according to Alpha Data, 226 million, and of those shares were 61.5% to Apple Music. And then they go on to have 38 Baby 2 by YoungBoy Never Broke Again. I don't even know if that's an actual artist name, but he released on April 24th, number 1 in total demand audio streams. And with that one being predicted, Apple Music share was 71.2%. Now, you guys can also check out this article on Music Business Worldwide. Check this out for yourself. But it seems like, you know, Apple Music is really trying to gain a little bit more of the market in terms of, you know, it's almost like a little bit of this label thing that's happening, and where, you know, they're trying to almost promote these artists a little bit more, maybe give them a certain type of relationship, and maybe if they buy those shares, they'll promote the hell out of their music and take care of promotions and such. What do you think, Coop?
I got so many things to say about this. I don't even know where to start. So I think the first thing is the exclusivity, because, you know, as I mentioned last week, we had the Joe Rogan deal with Spotify, so that's exclusive deal. And I can't remember if you mentioned on this Apple Music thing if it's exclusive or not, or if it's just saying that Apple is gaining market share for streaming. But anyway, the other half of that is the headline reads dominates streaming, but these are new releases which are in decline. So,
yeah,
like, Yeah, it's dominating a declining market. I mean, okay,
You are right.
that's a little misleading. And the other
Well,
part of that is Apple Music. Remember, they're going for the vertical integration, which means they're trying to like bundle Apple Music with an iPhone, as
of
opposed to
course.
Spotify, which doesn't have any hardware that they can release. So,
It just makes it easier for people to go over to the Apple Music stream. And definitely, if you're listening to newer music, I think there's more integration with that, with the like these newer hip hop artists, the newer pop artists in general. Where if you're like listening on iTunes, they're gonna already show you, for instance, all the Apple Music possibilities. And then you click on that Apple Music thing, and it's just like, oh yeah, well you need Apple Music. One of the reasons I don't go over Apple Music because I heard they delete your iTunes library, and I find that to be super misleading, and I don't know if I would ever want that to happen. But I don't know. I mean, would anybody be able to tell us some of the differences between Spotify and Apple Music? Is there anybody out there that can provide a good argument for Apple Music? But yeah, I could definitely see that. I don't know if there's a certain exclusivity here. I'm not necessarily sure if that's what their intent is, but if it is exclusive, I can definitely see how they're almost trying to kind of grid labels into kind of making sure that they're the premier streaming service for all of their artists, which means that they've become this hybrid label of the sort. I don't know.
Spotify tried to do that a few years ago, and the labels like freaked out. Remember?
Yeah.
Spotify was going to sign artists directly. The labels freaked out, and then back then, as time goes on, the labels are basically losing control, and Apple is much more tied in with the labels. Well, I guess they're all pretty tied in with the labels because the music streaming thing. Nobody's creating content, and that's what Spotify was trying to do. Was they were trying to like sign their own talent to create their own content that they controlled, as opposed to licensing it from a label.
Yeah.
So that's the labels are basically trying to like walk a fine line where they need these distributors to get their music out there, but they don't want to like give them the keys to the castle either. And but the distributors, Apple, Spotify, they're trying to like get more of the control. So it's basically a kind of back and forth. And that's why I think the Joe Rogan thing was so important, because Spotify has definitely been trying to expand their market share in podcasting, and that deal in particular is going to kind of pave the way for a lot of musicians as well, because now labels are going to be like, oh well, my artist can get, Joe Rogan got 100 million, give my artist 10 million, and the artists are going to be like, yeah, I'm getting paid, and then they're just going to basically fire sale their control away eventually.
But like you said earlier, we're in an industry that's on the decline. So, I mean, after a while,
well, new music is in decline. Streaming is up.
Yeah,
but that's up. Catalog streaming, and that's basically the cash cows for labels.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what I mean to say when we are looking at all of this and how they're trying to ramp up all of these buys for artists, but yet they're not actually selling anything. It's like, where are they getting all this money from to do that?
Wait, say it again. Sorry.
Where are they getting all that money from to be able to add such a premium? Where are these labels getting all that money from? Like, where is that happening? Like,
they're IPOing. They're IPOing. That's what they're selling stock, basically. That's where the money's coming from. That's why the Warner's IPOing is to get more capital to dump into their artists. I got to switch my battery.
Oh. Interesting. Well, I'll go over some of these other things right here. This is Blame It On Baby by The Baby, released April 17th, US #1 total on-demand audio streams in week 1. According to Alpha Data, 129.1 million, and Apple Music share 59.3. So yeah, they're definitely gunning for something, and that's one of the things that I'm not necessarily seeing. It does look a little bit of a different kind of format than what Spotify was trying to do. Maybe what Apple Music is saying, instead of signing artists, we're just going to try to just be that premier service. Now, another thing about Apple Music is what's different is there is no free service for Apple Music.
Don't they have a free 3-month trial?
A free 3-month trial, but that would not rival Spotify's free, format, So they consider themselves a premium service.
Right, gotcha. I mean, also, that feeds into like the royalty rates too, because you have services like Pandora, which is not what's the word? It's not on demand, but it's like basically you can pick the songs versus Pandora is like radio, like it'll pick the songs for you and you can skip. But if it's interactive.
Yeah, exactly.
So the interactive streaming services have to pay more in royalties.
Yeah, absolutely, because the audience is interacting more with being able to use the music on offline playlists, stuff like that. Also, as opposed to the radio format, you can worry about less licenses to acquire and stuff of that nature.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And the world keeps turning.
The world keeps turning. All right. So are we going to move on to our review of... are you going to come up?
Yeah, New Music Friday.
New Music Friday, guys.
I'll start with mine while you're pulling yours up.
Cool.
First one that I saved was Taken. It was actually like, as millennials, like Taken. Like nobody opens their mouth anymore. That was Rosalia and Travis Scott, or maybe it was Rosalia featuring Travis Scott. So Latin music, as I discovered last year when I was doing a lot of market tracking, is Latin music is just super hot, especially for new music. Like it just performs very, very well. So this is interesting because you have one of the biggest Latin artists, like the biggest new Latin artist, Rosalia, teaming up with one of the biggest I mean, he's been around for a few years, but Travis Scott is like, he's like on, Drake's footsteps, basically, as far as career.
Yeah.
He's huge. So I feel like that's kind of a label collab. Let's take the hottest artist from Latin and the hottest artist from hip hop, and we'll put them together. We'll have a mumble on a track and take it.
I thought the vocal approach for the reggaeton song was for Taken was fresh. I liked all the dirty, gritty vocals that they added, and there was a lot of like reverb presence that felt more alive, that where you would hear in a very sterile kind of sense of.
Well, that's Travis Scott's whole sound. Like that's a big part of his sound.
Yeah.
So that's like that's what makes him distinctive is the exactly what you're saying, like the vocal production with the reverbs and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yes. So the next one was Dance With Me, the Diplo record with Thomas Rhett. So Diplo's kind of doing this like country thing now, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely interesting.
I thought the record was pretty good. I like the sample. I dug it. It might. I figured it might have to grow on me, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Diplo's stuff is usually a little too eclectic for me, but this one I enjoyed the record. I mean, I'm just going off what I like, it's not, and then I think of it in context of like how it's performing and whatnot. But when I
Yeah.
listen to this, I'm looking for what I like. Football Irumba, which is Anuele, and is that how you say that? Anuel Anuela,
Yeah, I heard that record.
with Enrique Iglesias, which is, I mean, I love that dude's voice. He's awesome. That's what really drove me to that. A lot of Latin records this week for me.
Yeah, I heard that record. It was pretty cool. Enrique's voice is cool. I just wanted to note that.
Mad World by Ex Lovers. I think it's kind of like a bedroom pop hipster thing. I don't know. I just like the groove. I don't really know much about it. I threw it on there.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I love that song. That was pretty cool.
Same with Gashi. Paranoid was the next one. And then after that was U2 Love with Neo and Jeremiah. And that was really cool. Reminded me of the time I met Jeremiah. It was like just the way you'd imagine it. It was like, I was meeting him at the studio with Ken, and he's like, yeah, go in the other room, and Jeremiah's in there. So I opened the door. It's like thick cloud of blunt smoke. Like, you cannot see anything. It's so cloudy in there. So I'm swimming through the blunt smoke, and then all of a sudden it's Jeremiah. He's got his sunglasses on. He looks just like he does in the album cover, and he's like, hey, what's up? I'm Jeremiah. I'll never forget that.
Wow, yeah. I remember when Ken did a tutorial on Down With Me
Yeah.
on YouTube. I
This was
remember
around
that.
that time when he was doing Down With Me. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really cool tutorial. He did some wild stuff in that mix.
Yeah. I missed that mix. 50 Cent came to Ken's house, and I had out of town clients, so I actually missed the session.
Oh wow, that's
Of all the sessions to miss,
yeah.
Down on Me. I love that record. It's killing.
Yeah, it was killing, man. Anything else you want to add to New Music Friday?
Yeah, I have a couple more. I'll just run through them real quick. Two Birds by Mike. I don't know. I liked it. Fuego de Calor, Scott Storch featuring Ozuna and someone else on here. That's another, I was saying the Latin records are on point this week. Everything's Good by Phil Good. This just reminds me of our good friend Phil. I would think.
Oh yeah.
I would think he would probably, say the opposite. Everything's Bad by Phil Bad, but I'm gonna tell him that to his face, but I'm just gonna say it live on Twitch right now instead. Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it.
It's not technically behind his back. Mi Amor by Nova Miller. Fire and Flame by Kip Moore. It's kind of like a country record. It's pretty cool. I Love My Friends by Steve Aoki and Icona Pop. Tokyo featuring Zira by 3Lau, the Seven Lions remix. I'm a big Seven Lions fan. I just watched his show on, they had the EDC Carnival. They've been live streaming, the Insomniac production company or whatever that does all the booking for EDC. They put on shows every weekend, and it was really awesome. And Victim. Oh no, that's another one. Victim by Sicko Toy, Ina, and Tag. I don't know. That was basically it.
Cool.
Good run.
Okay. So Cooper has finished his wrap up for New Music Friday. I'm gonna go through mine. So I love the Juice WRLD song, Tell Me You Love Me. It was cool. I love the sample. As we talked about earlier, the Rosalia song, I like the fresh approaches for vocal sounds and reggae tone. I loved the record Let Go by D-Smoke and SIR. I thought they were great samples. There's a really cool old school sample in that. Match in the Rain, Alec Benjamin. Loved the melody. I love how the song rides the guitar. I personally thought the Diplo record was okay. It wasn't anything special or anything like that. I did like this record called Hurry Home by an artist called No Rome. I love the context overall. The song I really loved the most on the playlist, the only thing I really added was You're So Fucking Cool by an artist named Tones and I love the lyrics. The lyrics are really relative. I felt like they hit me right from the spot. You're So Fucking Cool was just one of my favorite songs this week. And I was trying to talk to Cooper about this. There was a whole thing about this. I'll skip over this one for right now. But Dog Eat by Jack Larson, weird but cool vibe. Something to rap about. It sounds like a Mark Dollar sample. The song Something to Rap About. I forget the artist, but I should probably put that in there. But there's a few other songs on here. I love that the Raconteurs are on here. The new I Prevail with Joyner Lucas. I thought that was really cool. But there's a few things I want to say in the overall. Again, going back to what we were talking about with Chagrin, it's like, guys, like, what are we doing? Are we just picking samples or are we producers? I heard thousands of guitar samples on the playlist, but it sounded like people were just picking samples. Stop just fucking picking samples. Your sample doesn't make the record. It's that simple. You have to do more. Stop being fucking lazy. It's just that simple. I got a Splice account too. I love it. I don't really like the semantic stuff, but it's whatever. I'm not trying to. Yeah, their stuff is cool. I use it every now and then. I like the gold pack that they did, and then they did a Juice WRLD pack that was super awesome.
Yeah, but the semantic stuff is really good, but once you have like a few of their packs, they all kind of sound very similar. Versus Splice has so many different like labels and producers on there, you're gonna get a lot more variety.
Exactly. But again, guys, are we producers or are we samplers? Listen, I'm a fucking producer. I'm trying to like make the record, effective in every single way possible. Even if it's just an acoustic guitar, even if it's the shittiest song, like I'm going to do the most bang out job that I can to make the listener just go off into a different world. And one thing about it for me is that I got a very short attention span, my goddamn self. So it's like, if I'm sitting there and I can't feel the record, I know that the person that doesn't have my knowledge and my know-how, they're already bored. You know what I'm saying? So you always have to think about, are you bored listening to your record? And if you are, you shouldn't release it. Very simple. And I also heard some really bad mixes on this playlist this week. There was one in particular. I have to point it out. Which one was it? I have to say it. Like This by G Herbo. Whoa, that was a wild mix. Whoever did that was like, whoa, what were you thinking?
Hip-hop?
Like,
is it a hip hop record?
It's a hip hop record.
Hip hop, like, it's a circus all the way to the top. It really is.
It's a circus. It really is. Like, I almost get pissed off when like hip hop artists come to me and try to like get a mix out of me, because I know I'm going to go back and forth with them in terms of what they think good quality is. And that's the thing. I personally think when I work in, hip hop, you're dealing with a difference in quality, because some of those artists, and this is just true, aren't listening on optimal systems. They're listening on their phones. They're listening on these little Beats pills that are halfway broken. They're listening on their dad's like stereo system and 5.1 surround. Like this is not a joke. I car tested a mix with a client, and he dared to give me mix revisions on a busted speaker. Now, I know he might know the sound of his busted speaker, but his busted speaker is damaging his image to how a record should actually sound. So that's the first thing, is that, you know, when you're working with those artists, you're always going to fight the uphill battle. That's one of the reasons I don't like doing hip hop, because I fight so hard to get the best sounds that I can. And sometimes my clients aren't there with me on that. But yeah, you know, it was just like, you know, some high-end spiky vocals in some places. But yeah, I just wanted to say that to certain people. But that's my, you know, New Music Friday wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not completely lost. You know, you have guys like Travis Scott and, you know, Drake, obviously, that have high quality mixes and productions, and I think those are the type of records that hip hop producers should aspire to achieve that level of quality. But yeah, I mean, there's like so many records that have like awful mixes and productions that I think the labels are just pushing them because they think hip hop is hot, you know, like I think that's basically what it is.
Yeah,
because these records are here today and gone tomorrow, like, you know, because everybody listens to it and they're like, oh, that sounds like trash, and then they never listen to it again.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's even clips in some of the Juice WRLD songs that I hear, and I that's probably a part of his style a little bit. But even so, just to hear some clips, like, come on, like, how much are you guys getting paid? Like,
yeah, right.
Can somebody sit there and edit a fucking clip? Like, what the fuck? Like, like, we're talking about, you know, an actual good artist. Like, you treat your artists like that? What the fuck? You know?
For real. It's a travesty.
Okay. Well, we got some questions, and we're going to try to run through the questions really fast. Just only because, you know, we got a lot to move on to. We're just going to kind of knock them out as fast as we possibly can. A little quick question round for me and Cooper. Gun to your head. Question number one is, gun to your head, what EQ do you quarantine with?
Let's see. What EQ do I quarantine with? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I know what I would go ahead and say. I'm just gonna say.
Just go ahead and say it.
I'm gonna go with CLA Mix Hub. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I could have gone Pro Q3. The problem with me with Pro Q3 is that I don't ever feel like adding in Pro Q. I don't ever feel like doing
towards is Pro Q.
You know, I don't ever feel like doing additive EQ in Pro Q. One, because I'm already doing so much of surgical work that when I do an additive band, you're gonna start, and I do hear this. You start to hear differences in the phase of that instrument, and the EQ phase of that instrument. That's what starts to get me after a while. So I try not to do too much besides subtract in Pro Q. But I can do.
You even put it on the linear phase mode?
Yeah, even with linear phase mode, it's just like, you know, because for instance, number one, and FabFilter talked about this in their FabFilter EQ videos. Mm-hmm. I think for Pro Q2, they talked about this. When you leave it on zero latency mode, what happens is, I think it goes up to the sympathetic frequency. So for instance, if you high pass at 50 hertz, then what happens is there's like this weird kind of spike that has to happen inside of their algorithm that will then read down to the high pass filter. So you can, if you really listen closely in zero latency mode and Pro Q, you can really hear like the phase kind of shifting around a bit when you're using some of those modes. Now, I still love it because those differences are so nominal. Like, they're not even like they're so negligible that, you know, I mean, yeah, I probably shouldn't even be thinking about it. But at the same time, if I'm trying to keep something to sound the exact same way, I have to be careful with that thing. But the reason for CLA mix-up for me is because I could do both very fast. And I could also add another EQ module if I wanted to as well.
But you wouldn't have any. You that's already above and beyond. Yeah, you're already getting bonus modules.
Okay, well that's cool. I'll stick with my one module of 4 bands of EQ and my two filter points, and I'm good.
Yeah. See, I would have to take. I was thinking an SSL EQ. I was, we're definitely on the same page. So it'd be between. But I would probably go with the UAD one. Yeah. But yeah, what about the linear phase mode on ProQ? I mean, not linear phase, the natural phase. There's 3 modes. There's zero latency, linear phase, and natural phase.
I think the biggest problem with some of those is that they do like, what is it called? It adds like a hump, or it manipulates the transient
resonance or whatever.
Yeah, it adds like some resonant lumps or pre lumps that can get into the audio a little bit. So I tend to stick away from those because obviously it becomes a computer hog after a while. And then, again, like if I try to, and with me, I try to keep, if you really look at my mix template, and we're not getting into it right now, but, I tend to keep it very open wielded. There's not too many things going on here, but I try not to mix with so many different plugins. So I try to stick to what I can try to do with inside of one plugin as much as possible. Any other things you want to add to this?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay, Cooper, what are some of the major differences between the new Logic update and Ableton that gets nitpicky for you?
The differences between the new Logic update and Ableton?
Yeah, we were talking about, last week we were talking about, the new Logic update and how it might rival Ableton. Have you per se gotten a chance to like really experience, how Logic works for you that's a little different than Ableton? Is there anything that you're like, I would rather, use Ableton for that, or anything of that such?
I mean, for me, I'm not even really thinking about it like that. I just think of them as kind of 2 separate things. So, so for me, if I'm making a beat, I'll either be making an Ableton beat or I'll be making a Logic beat. Right now, Logic is new and fun, so I'm making more Logic beats. Previously, cool. I got my push, so I was making a lot of Ableton beats. And then in regards to like actually getting work done, I just go with what the client needs, basically. So if the client's using Logic, I'll work in Logic. If they're big on Ableton, I'll use Ableton. Yeah, I think Logic is like pretty much, it's kind of an all-in-one package. Like you can really do everything, where I feel like Ableton isn't quite there yet. I mean, you can technically, but it's not great for mixing and vocal production. Logic is great for those. It's not the best, but it's like pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do any vocal production without doing it in Pro Tools. I don't know. For me, it's like, I don't know. That's just me. That's my preference.
Well, at the end of the day, you got to go with what you got to go with what you're comfortable with. So yeah, they're all. You can get it done in all of them. I mean, even the people who are only on Ableton, they're doing vocals and stuff in there too. You can get it done. But
I'm gonna skip ahead to this next question. I'll come back to the last one because I got to think about this. How do you guys get mixes going for the phone? And I'm assuming that this person is saying the phone speaker. I had a client ask me for a specific revision to fix the bass on the phone, citing that most people will listen to the song on their phone first. And, well, the fact that I don't know if people actually get the chance to really truly hear bass coming from their phones, because phones don't reproduce low end that low. Most phones are high passed up to like 250 hertz. Most earbuds are high passed anywhere from 80 hertz to 150 to 250 hertz. So you're really not experiencing that much low end in those mediums. That's not to say that you don't feel it, but I don't necessarily know if I would fix a specific revision for phone. Would you, Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. You know, there is no bass on the phone. So when you're doing a mix, that's really one of the trickiest things, is to make it applicable for all listening formats. And for me, the easiest way to do that is just listen to the mix on the phone and see how it sounds. And what a lot of people are doing for like bass instruments is you just add saturation in like the lower mid ranges, you know, 808s in particular, and that'll be audible on a phone, so you can still feel that. But you know, in the case of an 808, you'll still have the low end sub frequency, so when you do listen to it on a bigger system, it'll still knock basically. But yeah, just listen to it is the short answer basically. Listen to it on your phone, make sure it sounds good. Listen to other music on your phone. I mean, I actually have an app called Mix Checker by Audified that I used to use. It's like a convolution thing. It basically like simulates being on a phone, but I don't know. I find nothing beats the real thing.
Yeah, because for one, it's just how speakers work. And that's the other thing to consider. If you're mixing on speakers, and even on headphones, but if you're definitely mixing on speakers, when you sum down to the one channel, because the truth is, it's one channel. It's summed down to one channel audio on your phone. Most phones do not have stereo representations of what's going on musically. Just because they can't reproduce it, because it would literally rupture the phone. Apple has had to change a lot of their speaker layout just because they're known to rupture the phone. So you just simply can't hear it, but there's ways to work on it. You know, I like to work on the mid-range of a record. I don't think there's anything more important than the mid-range. I think the low end is great and all, but that's such a subjective thing. That's so subjective as per each and every listener that you go and talk to. Because the problem with that is, you know, a listener might have a full stereo system at home, and that's how they prefer to listen to music. But the next person you go to talk to, all they listen to is Apple earbuds. The next person you go to talk to has Beats by Dre, like you do, or the Beats Pro. Some people listen on the Beats Pill. Some people listen on their computer, their TV monitor.
In their car.
So, in their car. So you have to know your sonic set.
Awesome. Well, I think we pretty much got 2 YouTube videos, maybe even 3 out of this podcast. This was a long one.
I think so too. This is a long one, man. But it was a good one. I feel like we went over a lot of great stuff today, and Coop,
for sure.
Word. Well, Producing Music Podcast.
.com.
You guys, producing.com.
Yeah. MarkDollarTemplate.com. Just kidding. There is a DollarSamplePack.com website though.
Yes, there is.
And I know we said we were going to do giveaways, but you know, it's holiday weekend and we still haven't put the Mark Dollar Sample Pack together. So go to Dollar Sample Pack. Is it DollarSamplePack.com?
I think it's Dollar Sample Pack.
Yeah, DollarSamplePack.com. and sign up for the email, and we will let you know as soon as this thing comes out. $samplepack.com. Yes, Mark Dollar sample pack. There it is.
Yes, dollar sample pack. Yes, baby, we're coming to get you.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Till next week.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for hanging. This was a long one, but there's so much goodies in here. So make sure you listen, and we'll catch you on the other
Shout out
side.
again to Chagrin for joining us in the beginning.
Yeah, Chagrin, you are awesome, man. Thank you for joining us on our podcast. You are amazing, and I look forward to listening to your new record.
I'm about to put it on right now.
Me too.
All right, buddy. I will talk to you later.
Peace, guys.